to episode 47 of the Burning Bush podcast, where we share the message of the Bible while enjoying a good cigar. Hope everybody's having a great week. I know I'm just recovering from the COVID that I got a couple weeks ago, so might sound a little hoarse today. I tried recording this episode a few days ago and couldn't make it through, so going to give it a shot again, see how it goes. So this week I am smoking the Quesada Cigars Casa Magna, Colorado. And as has happened in the past, I've gone to their website, and not just with Quesada cigars, but other brands as well. Go to their website and there's just not a whole lot of information. So I'm going to take us over to the old standby, cigarsinternational.com, and give you the rundown from there. Casa Magna, Colorado, a 93 rated gem. Casa Magna, Colorado is the brainchild of two of the cigar industry's most revered manufacturers, Manuel Quesada and Nestor Plasencia. This Nicaraguan puro is full-bodied and moderately priced, comprised of Ligero and Viso fillers from several different regions of Nicaragua and a beautiful Cuban seed Ligero Colorado wrapper. The Casa Magna is hand-rolled in Plasencia's Nicaraguan factory. The result is a smooth, rich, full-bodied cigar with undertones of coffee and sweet spices. A well-made slow burner at a great price. Cigar Aficionado rated Casa Magna the #1 cigar of 2008 with an outstanding 93-point rating. Additionally, it's still going strong, earning the #10 spot for 2011. And the profile is full strength. Wrapper is a Nicaraguan Ligero. Filler is Nicaraguan as well. And the vitolas are Belicoso 6.2 by 54, which is what I'm smoking. The Churchill 6.8 by 49. The Gran Toro 6 by 58. And the Robusto 5.5 by 52. So that is the description of the Casa Magna, Colorado from cigarsinternational.com, which I will have linked in the show notes. Okay, so let's get back into Dr. Justin Bass's book, The Bedrock of Christianity. We're still in chapter 1, and this week the section is entitled Paul the Pharisee. In order to time travel to the earliest days of Paul, his pre-Christian days of the 20s and early 30s AD, we must consult his autobiography in the first chapter of Galatians. If we met Paul in Jerusalem in the late 20s AD, we would find a zealous young Pharisee, possibly even training under Rabbi Gamaliel, one of the most famous rabbis of his day, Acts 22, verse 3. Incredibly, Paul's letters are the only writings we have from a Pharisee before the destruction of the temple in AD 70. Even though Paul does not use the word Pharisee directly in Galatians, he presents himself as a young Pharisee, advancing in Judaism beyond many of my contemporaries among my countrymen, being more extremely zealous for my ancestral traditions. Galatians 1:14. According to New Testament scholar James Dunn, the picture Paul here paints is of a dedication to excellence and to the most careful exposition of and living in accordance with the law, as interpreted within the sect of the Pharisees, which outstripped most even of his fellow Pharisees. The Pharisees were like the university and seminary professors of the first century AD. Paul is claiming in Galatians that he was running with the elite of Jewish sects of his day, graduating summa cum laude, and as to knowledge of Torah and zeal for God, he surpassed them all. Paul's testimony in the books of Philippians and Acts further witness to this. If anyone else has a mind to put confidence in the flesh, I far more, circumcised the 8th day of the nation of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, as to the law, a Pharisee, as to zeal, a persecutor of the church, as to the righteousness which is in the law, found blameless. Philippians 3, 4 through 6. I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city, educated under Gamaliel, strictly according to the law of our fathers, being zealous for God, just as you all are today. Acts 22, 3. I lived as a Pharisee according to the strictest sect of our religion. Acts 26, verse 5. Notice the repetition of similar language, as to the law, a Pharisee, extremely zealous for my ancestral traditions, educated strictly according to the law of our fathers, and the sect of the Pharisees is the strictest sect of our religion. Even though this testimony is not found in Paul's undisputed letters, it is undisputed among scholars that Paul was a Pharisee. Even if some scholars debate the historicity of Paul's speeches in Acts, what Paul says about the Pharisees is historically accurate. The Pharisees studied Torah and recited the Shema, Deuteronomy 6:4, daily and were extremely zealous for their ancestral traditions, and their zeal burned supremely for the God of Israel. And I've got a loud, crazy neighbor across the street. Give her a second. We know a lot about the Pharisees, not just only from the pre-70 Pharisee author Paul, but also from the most significant post-70 Pharisee author, Josephus. Josephus was born in Galilee in AD 37, around the time Peter and Paul were having that epic meeting we discussed in the prologue, and identifies himself as a Pharisee in his life. So when I had accomplished my desires, I returned back to the city, being now 19 years old, and began to conduct myself according to the rules of the sect of the Pharisees, which is of kin to the sect of the Stoics, as the Greeks call them. Life 12. We learn from Josephus that there were more than 6,000 Pharisees in Jerusalem and throughout the diaspora in the 1st century AD. Jewish Antiquities 18.14. The other two major sects of Judaism at this time, the Sadducees and the Essenes, had far fewer adherents than the Pharisees. Jewish Antiquities 13.171 through 173. All three of these Jewish sects first show up in the history during the Hasmonean dynasty, 143 to 63 BC. The Hasmonean dynasty is still considered by many Jews today, along with the time of David and Solomon, to be a golden age of their history. This was a unique time in Jewish history, as it was the only time after the return from the Babylonian exile in 539 BC that the Jews had autonomy from their pagan neighbors. The Roman general Pompey put an end to this autonomous Hasmonean reign in 63 BC, when Judea came under the authority of the Roman Empire. The sect of the Pharisees first appeared under the reign of the Hasmonean ruler Alexander Jannaeus, 103 to 76 BC, but may have emerged even earlier during the reign of John Hyrcanus I, 134 to 104 BC. According to Josephus, Alexander Jannaeus had 800 Pharisees crucified while he was feasting with his concubines for protesting his reign. Jewish Antiquities 13.380. Even though the Pharisees did not have much political power, they did have a special sway over the Jewish people. As Josephus writes, they had the support of the masses. Jewish Antiquities 13.298, and see also 13.409. This agrees with how the leading Pharisees in Jerusalem are portrayed in all four Gospels. Some Pharisees, along with other religious leaders, are presented as conspiring to arrest Jesus and swaying the crowds to crucify him. Matthew 27:62, Mark 3:6, Luke 7, John 18:3, and see also Mark 15:1 through 10. Josephus also tells us about what the Pharisees believed. As Paul himself testifies in the quotes above, Josephus says the Pharisees have the reputation of being unrivaled experts in their country's laws. Life 191. Moreover, they passed on to the people certain regulations handed down by former generations and not recorded in the laws of Moses. Jewish Antiquities 13.297, what Paul calls ancestral traditions. Josephus also testifies to the Pharisees' belief in bodily resurrection. They believe that souls have power to survive death and that there are rewards and punishments under the earth for those who have led lives of virtue or vice. Eternal imprisonment is the lot of evil souls, while the good souls receive an easy passage to a new life. Jewish Antiquities 18.14. This agrees with the testimony of Acts 23:6-8. But perceiving that one group were Sadducees and the other Pharisees, Paul began crying out in the council, "Brethren, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. I am on trial for the hope and resurrection of the dead." As he said this, there occurred a dissension between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, nor an angel, nor a spirit, but the Pharisees acknowledge them all. In sum, before Paul became a follower of this crucified man, Jesus, he was a Pharisee, surpassing all his contemporaries in zeal for Torah and God. It is a bedrock fact that the pre-Christian Paul was, by his own proud testimony, circumcised on the 8th day, a Hebrew of Hebrews, an Israelite, descended from Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin, as to law, a Pharisee, and as to zeal, a persecutor of the church. See Romans 11:1, 1 Corinthians 15:9-11, 2 Corinthians 11:22, Philippians 3:5-6, Galatians 1:13-14, and 22-24. See also Acts 7:58, 8:1 and 3, 9:1-2, and 13-14, and 21, 22:4-5, and 19-20, 23:6, 26:4-5, and 9-11, Romans 9:3-4, 11:13-14, and 1 Timothy 1:12 and 13. It is this word translated zeal, zelotes, that is most illuminating for us to understand Paul's passions, aims, and even heroes as a young Pharisee. The word zeal, or zealous, can be found 3 times on Paul's lips in the New Testament, the latter 2 of which are quoted above. I was advancing in Judaism beyond many of my contemporaries among my countrymen, being more extremely zealous for my ancestral traditions. Galatians 1:14. If anyone else has a mind to put confidence in the flesh, I far more, as to the law, a Pharisee, as to zeal, a persecutor of the church. Philippians 3, 4 through 6. I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city, educated under Gamaliel, strictly according to the law of our fathers, being zealous for God, just as you all are today. Acts 22, 3. It was this insatiable zeal for Torah, his ancestral traditions, and especially for God, that led Paul the Pharisee to become Paul the persecutor. As he himself testifies, I am the least of the apostles, and not fit to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. 1 Corinthians 15, 9. What does Paul mean that he was extremely zealous, even zealous for God? In order to answer this question, we must go back to the stories of Phinehas, Elijah, Jehu, and Mattathias, and Judas Maccabeus. All 5 of these men were highly praised in Jewish history for having great zeal for God, and it is reasonable to conclude that they were heroes to this young Pharisee, Paul. That will be it for this week's reading of The Bedrock of Christianity by Dr. Justin Bass. I made it through somehow. I don't know if you could tell, but there were a lot of edits in this episode because practically every paragraph, my throat just completely dried out and closed up, and so I had to take a drink of water, clear my throat. So it took quite a while to record this episode. A lot of pauses, and I'm going to be doing a lot of editing on this one because I've got halfway through a number of these paragraphs and just choked up. So hopefully by next week all the COVID symptoms will be gone and we'll be back to normal. So with that, we'll close it out. Thanks again for stopping by. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen every week. And make sure you check out the show notes for the link to this week's cigar, to Dr. Justin Bass's website, where you can pick up his books and check out his YouTube channel. Also, groundworksministries.com for daily Bible studies and devotionals. And also the Burning Bush podcast merchandise store, where you can pick up some swag to help spread the news about the show and tell your friends. So that'll do it for this week, and until next time, have a great day, have a great cigar, and God bless.